In this lesson, I consider false dilemma in climate negotiation. This is also sometimes called false dichotomy and even black and white argument. My lesson objectives are to help us gain familiarity with the false dilemma tactic, recognize where and how it can crop up in our climate negotiations, and finally to develop an understanding of what we might do about it when we encounter it. So what is false dilemma? I alluded to this earlier. We call it black and white argument. It's also known as false dilemma, as I said, or false dichotomy sometimes. In false dilemma, the person you're discussing with incorrectly posits that there are only two sides of an issue. And if you accept one, then by necessity you have to reject the other. And more often than not, it's false. It's not true because it ignores the nuances of issues. So it treats everything like it's black and white. Now, this is really common in political discourse, in social media, and we see it every day. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, we do to each other. Either you go to the store with me, or you don't love me anymore. It's a false dilemma, because there may be reasons why I don't want to go to the store, or I can't go to the store with you today, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. But because it's so common, this is one where we can be particularly blind to it in practice. We don't see the nuances either. Here's an example that we get in climate negotiation. And I've been told this. Either you agree that climate change is a hoax, or you are against energy workers. So I want to think about this one. There's a problem here. The problem is that it's possible to accept climate change as a reality and at the same time support energy workers. This isn't a two-sided coin. You don't have to oppose energy workers to support climate action. You can actually support both. Now, I know this because I spent a large part of my career working in energy and on climate change. And I know that many energy companies take climate change very seriously and they're working hard on it. So they want to support their workers and at the same time they want to address climate change. This is a complex and nuanced issue and we need to treat it that way to be successful in effecting change. But false dilemma skips over the subtlety. Like I said, I can support energy workers while raising questions about how we use energy, how do we do things, and seeking new opportunities and efficiencies. In fact, that was a large part of my job over many years in working in energy, is looking for new ways to do things and finding efficiencies. So you can do both. And when the argument is presented as black and white, it ignores all the good work that people are actually doing. And in that way, it undermines the success of the energy industry itself in making headway on climate change. So why should we care? Well, in fact, black and white argument is lazy, and it's sloppy, and it is incredibly addictive because we use it all the time with each other. And it tricks us into believing that an issue can be treated as a simple two-sided battle. And this is really entertaining. It's like a football game. You win or you lose. You're for me or you're against me. And either you agree with me or you're an enemy. And we've seen a lot of this in social media, in politics these days. Either you agree with everything I have to say or you hate me. Well, none of that's actually necessarily true. In most issues I have found there are shades of gray. And it's in exploring the nuances of these issues that we find the real solutions, the things that we can agree on. That's where we find the common ground. The common ground is in the nuances, not in the poles of the problem. And it crops up as friendly fire. So it can be used, for example, within the climate specialist community itself, demanding that we all share one single, uniform approach and a set of values. Otherwise, we'll be branded by others within our group as deniers. And this is very dangerous because it presumes that one side already knows everything there is to know, and it diverts us from our mission. And even more striking, it opens the door for trolls. Because the trolls see this argument going on within the climate advocacy community, and they just stoke the flames. They throw gasoline on the fire, and they set us against each other. And in that way, they win by impeding action. Here's another example. If you're working on climate change adaptation, you must be against reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Or sometimes it said, Joel, either you work on climate change adaptation or you work on greenhouse gas management. You can't have it both ways. Now, this is one that's also very common, and it's also wrong. Because to be successful in addressing climate change, we have to address climate impacts, but we also have to reduce emissions. There's no way around doing both. We have to make fundamental changes to the way we generate and use energy. And we have to adapt in the meantime to protect lives and property. They're not mutually exclusive. They're equally necessary. Now, this is all a form of bargaining. And it, as I said, it can be used by trolls to divert us from our mission. But most people who you're dealing with when presenting you with a false dichotomy no longer deny that there is an issue here, but they're still not accepting that they have anything to do with it. And they use the false dilemma to avoid responsibility. Now, most of the dilemmas that I encounter in negotiation focus on climate actions and not the reality of climate change. So they oppose some action by saying they don't believe in climate change. So they'll say, I don't believe in climate change, so I don't have to be more efficient in my energy use. I don't believe in climate change, therefore I don't have to do this or that. So it's a false dilemma because they're not the same thing at all. But I see it as a way to get involved in the discussion. And in this case, when people face you with a false dilemma, we can discuss how the issue is actually more nuanced than that. Use it as an opportunity to unearth complexities of the issue. And, perhaps move one step towards acceptance. And I've also seen that we actually may learn something new and important along the way. So often by engaging with folks at this level and in this sort of tactic, we can find out where we can fix things and be a little bit better understood, or maybe we need to adjust our approach somewhat to make it work better. So on to do's and don'ts. Do open listen. Yes, we need to be patient. Yes, we need to stay on topic. And we absolutely have to understand our own position and our core argument. We need to know what we're talking about. Find the common ground. And use it as an opportunity to identify the nuances of the issue. And on to the don'ts. Well, as ever, we can't respond in anger. And I say, don't yield to the temptation to try to justify yourself. And don't get distracted by the argument, once again. And in the fallacies we consider, the common is still the same. Open listening, patience, understanding your position, seeking common ground. And in here, for the false dilemma, we add in, explain the nuances. Feel free to explain what's going on and why it's not black and white. So in this lesson, we covered the false dilemma tactic. We discussed how it crops up in climate negotiations. We gave a couple of examples. And then we contemplated what we could do about it. Comment below. I'll review your comments and we'll share them with the other participants in the course, and we can carry on the discussion that way.